Welcome back to Ride JBI. My name is Anthony. This, of course, is JB, and we are back for episode 2 of our 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross Rider Review Series. And in this episode, we are focusing on past champions. Now, of course, that includes the multi-time champ Cooper Webb, his teammate and another multi-time champ Eli Tomac, the 2018 Premier Class champion Jason Anderson, and then, of course, the 2023 champ Chase Sexton. So let's start with Chase Sexton, the rider who I think we have probably the most to talk about when it comes to the 2025 Supercross season, and arguably the rider that I am most excited to see. So do you think Chase improves upon last year, or do we kind of roll into Anaheim 1 with a big question mark over all of our heads, thinking, how is he going to like the bike? How is he going to gel with the track? And is he in a good spot mentally to go out and win?
I don't see how they don't show up to A1 with a better Chase. And by that, I mean headspace as a person, physique-wise, fitness. He seems to always be getting better in that aspect, or continually improving, and bike aspect as well. I would think even if his bike was the same bike from last year, just Chase being improved him on his own, he'd still make it work. It's very unlikely he's just going to be riding the same bike from last year. So likely they've been doing their homework, and I think we're going to see a very reinvigorated Chase Sexton that really wants to show what he felt like he could have showed everybody last year. Even though last year, man, he said he struggled with the bike, his results were, he finished pretty high up. Like, he was a contender for the majority of the series. So maybe it didn't look as good, but he was in contention. And that's a lot of it.
Yeah, if the bike was as bad as Chase alluded to, and he still snagged 2 wins, a bunch of podiums, and he wasn't that far out of the title fight heading to Nashville when he had the mechanical and he looped out over the double and was ultimately out of the championship after that race. And I can only think if they made the bike, let's say, even 10% better or even 15% better in Chase's mind, he actually feels that on the track, he's going to be right up there with those boys, Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, and whoever else is fighting for that championship. So I'm with you, man. I think they roll into Anaheim 1 in a much better spot than they were a year ago.
I want to touch on what you pointed out real quick, because I never really thought of before of, even if they only made the bike 5 or 10% different, that could be multiplied by just how much more comfortable he feels on the bike. So, and that can also go the other direction too, meaning if they make an adjustment that makes the bike 5% worse, that could get multiplied even more by his perception of being like, wow, this got even more worse. So good point in the sense of maybe they haven't always been that far off, and they only need to make a few minor tweaks, and that allows him to go from being comfortable to really comfortable, and then that just gets multiplied in the sense of his confidence and how he rides the bike. So good job on touching on that point. I never really thought about elaborating on it in that way.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Let's move on to the next rider. And arguably the rider that I have the most intrigue about heading into the season is Monster Energy Kawasaki's Jason Anderson. Now, with Anderson, we've seen some great years. I think back to his championship year in 2018, and arguably the better year in 2022. Last year in 2024, no wins, not a lot of flash or flare, a lot of 4th, 5th, maybe even a 7th or 8th at times. And I think for Jason, his second year aboard the all-new Generation KX450, having a new teammate, being out here in Southern California, I think that's only going to reinvigorate him. And I'm really curious to see what Jason Anderson shows up, not only at Anaheim 1, but throughout the entire season, to be honest, because he is in a contract year with Monster Energy Kawasaki. I think the 25 season is going to be really impactful on Jason Anderson's career.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. It kind of reminds me of when you see, not saying Jason's old, but in terms of racing career, he's been around. When you see an old dog get a young pup and how much that reinvigorates the older dog, it gives him a lot of excitement. And I think somebody like Jorge Prado gives him a chance to maybe take a slight mentoring role if he wants to, and kind of help share what he's learned. I've learned that I oftentimes get better when I have to pause for a second and explain and teach somebody what I'm doing, because then it makes me re-evaluate how I do it, then how do I articulate to somebody. So I could see some benefits, and one, giving Jason this a minor, not extra role, but maybe a different role he hasn't had in the past, to one, be helpful in that regards, but also maybe kind of give him some perspective on just his own riding career, his path, and how he's riding now. But good point on the new bike. It was just him and Adam last year, and probably Brock Tickle being all the testers on that bike. So now they got another year under their belt. The bike looked really good outdoors. I'm excited to see what kind of settings they've continued developing from since they left off on Supercross outdoors. We looked this up yesterday. So Anderson's been Showa Kawasaki pretty much the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
The only people to do KYB on Kawasaki would be previously Villapoto for maybe a little bit, Eli Tomac sometimes, and I think James Stewart. So it seems like they're suspension-wise, they're pretty happy with the components that they have. It seems like sometimes we do see the BFRC shock on that bike. Has it been on Anderson's or just sometimes on Cincerillo's? I can't remember what that would creep up on.
Both Anderson and Cincerillo in
both.
22. Yes.
Okay, but haven't seen it since. And then that does pop up on some of the Honda shocks sometimes, but never the Lawrence Bros. So the reason I bring that up is the bike's new, but maybe not too much of the suspension equipment. So sometimes it's nice to have some new things, but not all new things in terms of being able to pick up where you left off.
Let's move on to Eli Tomac, who I think is a lot of people's title pick heading into 2025. I think we were all excited to see him back in 24. There's a big question mark as if he was going to race after his injury in 23. But heading into 24, we all thought, hey, are we going to get the Eli Tomac that we all know and love? The Eli Tomac that was this close to winning the 23 title, who won the 22 title. We didn't quite get that. I think that was more of a warm-up year in a sense, coming off of an injury. And in 25, I think we're going to see the Eli Tomac of 2022 and 2023.
I think so too, man. With Eli's experience of just racing this long, he's not there unless he, one, wants to be, and then two, if he thinks he can ride at the level he wants to. You said his name, and immediately my mind went back to the first SMX race and how loud his bike was as it was ripping down the Charlotte straightaways, and just how we need that guy out there. One, for his racecraft, his ability, but just how much fun he is to watch and how hard he can ride a Yamaha YZ450. And let's touch on the hardware real quick. They've been KYB for a long time. I think some of their hardware options is they have the KYB spring fork, and then they have the KYB air fork, and maybe even a hybrid one as well, which is kind of part air, part spring also. Commonly the big blue fork cap, which is the Works, we'll say the Works KYB fork, and it usually has 3 screws on the top of it and then 1 air bleeder screw. So it looks quite different than what you normally see on a KYB fork. And then for the shock, it seems like they got the KYB kit shock, and they either use let's say, their traditional dual compression adjuster like you'd see on a Yamaha, or they use the triple adjuster, but not the style you see on the Suzuki's, but it is the Works triple adjuster, which is quite different than the OEM one. So I guess what I'm getting at, it's cool that they have kind of one brand to work with, but they got some options in terms of the hardware of what they want to do. And then it seems like they got some really good tuners in-house to work with also.
Yeah, and one other thing that I will touch on with Eli Tomac, I wonder how his mindset is coming into the year. He announced that this is his final full year of competition, and I wonder if he's coming into 2025 thinking, I have to get this done. The pressure is on. This is my final full season. I need to get this done. Or is it more of, you know what, I'm just going to do my best and let the chips fall as they may and kind of just let the pressure off. There obviously is a little bit of a doorway to do another Supercross only contract or some sort of contract like that in 26 and beyond, but who knows? Either way, I'm excited to see the number 3 on the gate at Angel Stadium in just over a week's time.
And then who is his multi-time champion teammate also on that same team?
Yeah, Cooper Webb. We cannot forget about Cooper Webb, another multi-time champion in the Premier class, and a guy who I will never count out from the title fight. I think he's been in the title fight more years than not than he's been in the 450 class. I think his early years, that being 17 and 18, you can kind of just write those off. He won the championship in 2019, and then in 2020, that being the COVID year, he kind of crashed out pretty early on and had to sit down a few rounds. Yeah, that was really rough, but he bounced back during the
literally.
Yeah.
Sorry. That was just, I can replay that in my head and you cringe because it's he goes off and flies through the air and then lands on concrete and bounces, and you're like, fuck, man, I'm glad we got nets in corners, but maybe we need some padding on the side as well.
Yeah. During the stretch run in Salt Lake City, he won multiple main events during that year. The following year in 2021, he obviously battled Ken Roxon for that Supercross championship. snagged that one in 2022. That was the first year that KTM introduced the all new generation 450 SXF. That bike was not really well received. In 2023, much improved Cooper Webb battled for that championship late into the season and then just got hurt. I believe it was at Nashville, and Adam Cianciarulo was the poor soul to run over his head. Then in 24, just fell short to Jet Lawrence. And I think if he were to not have that thumb injury late in the Supercross season, I don't want to say he wins the title, but maybe there's some sort of a different outcome towards the end of that season. But either way, I think of that recap history that we just went over. There's no doubt in my mind that Cooper Webb, when it comes to round 15, 16, 17, he's going to be in this title fight.
He is. Yeah, his racecraft impresses me almost every time we watch him race. Anytime I think, I don't know if he has this, as in whether it's the win or maybe a pass or a certain position, he finds out a way to get into that spot or put himself in a good spot. I love watching that guy ride. He's another one that he may win that night or he may not, but he'll be right there. And what a tough competitor to deal with week in, week out. And he knows how to talk the appropriate amount of shit to get people going. Like I like his interviews and kind of what he has fun stuff to say.
Of the four guys that we discussed in this video, who do you think is Jet Lawrence's biggest rival for this title? Would it be Chase Sexton, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, or even Jason Anderson, who I think may be somewhat of a dark horse in this title pick conversation?
I remember listening to Ricky Carmichael talk about how he would say, in his opinion, the Supercross series really started once they hit Daytona, meaning you just have to make it there as a racer and not put yourself in a bad points position. With that in mind, with Jet, he's young, he's hungry. I don't think he takes that same strategy. We just haven't seen that. The gate drops and he is going to go to the front. He's going to win. I think some of the more experienced riders that we just covered maybe do take some more of Ricky's strategy, but I don't see that being a beating strategy. So with that all said, I think Chase is the only one that says kind of fuck this. I will race you week in and week out. I'm going to try it all. I'm not waiting until Daytona for my season to start. It starts at day one, and I'm going to battle week in and week out and not save myself or play it safe for anything. So that's who I think. I can't see Cooper Webb or Eli or Jason being as aggressive right out of the gate. No, impulsive right out of the gate. Aggressive they can be, but impulsive in the sense of, should I go for this pass or should I maybe wait a lap or another corner or two and let it materialize better? I think to beat Jet, you need to pounce when you have that chance. And Chase is the one that's not scared to do that. What do you think?
My pick is going to be Eli Tomac. And I say that because he has the year under his belt now after the injury, kind of got that out of the way, but he's also been doing some of the World Supercross rounds that were maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now at this point. And I think that's kind of a warm up, let's say, for the 2025 Supercross season. You can joke that some of the rounds, especially Abu Dhabi, is more of like an arena cross style track. Totally get that. But I do think just logging those laps and getting some of that race intensity in.
It's still a gate drop.
Still a gate drop, exactly. Getting that race intensity in before Anaheim is crucial. And now that he has also ticked off another box in his career that he didn't have ticked off for a long time, is winning Anaheim 1. He did that back in 2023. My memory serves me correct. And I think that he knows what it takes to win Anaheim 1. It's always kind of an odd opener. There's a lot of excitement. It's kind of like the first day of school. And I think that he knows what it takes to win Anaheim 1 now. I think he's coming in hot, heavy, ready to go in his final full season of competition. So I think Eli Tomac is Jet Lawrence's biggest adversary or rival per se heading into the 2025 season.
I can't wait for them to all end up on the gate and just being at Angel Stadium and hearing the announcer and hearing the reps go and seeing that 30-second board go up and knowing that chaos is about to ensue. This is going to be a great 2025 Supercross series.
Well said, JB. Well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 2 of our rider review series for the 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross season. We will have another episode coming out the following day. That'll be episode 3, where we cover former Premier Class winners, that being Justin Barsha, Aaron Plessinger, and of course, Ken Roxon. So super excited for that. There's more to come in this rider review series, and we will be having race recaps available on YouTube and the Ride GBI Spotify channel as well. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Rider Reviews for the Supercross season. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.